I've just bought the cheapest 987 Porsche Cayman S in the UK, but there's a few reasons why it was the cheapest. Now I'll be honest, I didn't intend on buying this car. I was actually bidding for a different car, but I got outbid. And then this Cayman came up as the lot afterwards. Now I've never bought a car from auction before, so it was my first time, and this is how it went.
This is a hot lot. Bonus time.
Oh no, don't want bonus time. Intense.
Bonus time.
No bonus time.
Sold on approval.
Well, I've won.
You win it?
To be fair, it's crashed down his car. Mine's DTO.
Just another one.
But as you can see, I was quite confused, but I was also made up, but at the same time, I was scared because this is the first time I've ever done anything like this, and it's quite a risk to take. When you've just sunk the amount of money I put into this car on a car that you know doesn't even work, it is quite a daunting thing. However, having said that, I did get this car for a really good price, and that's kind of the reason why I ended up going with it. But the other reason was I used to own one of these Caymans and I loved it, and I was devastated when I had to get rid of it, but these aren't cheap cars to run. And this is YouTube, so if I'm going to rebuild a car, I might as well make it one worthwhile rebuilding. And like I always say, if you're going to repair or change something, you might as well upgrade it. So this car will be going back together, but it won't be going back together standard, and I can guarantee that. If you want to know how much you got it for, stay tuned and I'll tell you at the end. But anyway, let me show you the damage so you see the extent of what's actually wrong with the car. The front wing is destroyed. The headlight has been disintegrated, so it is pretty much a liquid. The windscreen's got a bit of a crack in it. It's got that passenger window delete, hence the plastic to stop all the water from getting in the car. This side actually looks quite nice, and from this angle the car looks fine. But we now know that's not the case. Steering wheel airbag's gone off. Dashboard airbag's gone off. Seatbelt's locked out. That's what happens when your airbag goes. And that's the same on both the passenger seatbelt and the driver's seatbelt. The rad pack probably gonna need changing. The aircon lines have ripped out. Down the back there you can see the lower control arm. I've had to change that because the ball joint snapped and this wheel was sitting in the wrong direction. And when you look on the auction photos, that wheel looked straight, so it looked like it was all fine. But when the car turned up, I very quickly realised that that wasn't the case. But even with all the damage, I think this car looks fantastic. And I know the front end's missing, the airbags have gone off, the subframe snapped, the passenger window is non-existent, and the windscreen is absolutely destroyed. But I must admit, I think this looks a lot worse than it actually is. Because the structural category marker is purely because that has bent there. Other than that, the actual structure of the car is spot on. There's no problems anywhere else, minus that little fold. And although I know insurances have their categories for a reason, I think that one's a bit of a joke. But having said that, I think the fact that it was a category S was part of the reason why I got it so cheap. But anyway, it's not all bad, so let's go over the positives of this Cayman. Firstly, the alloys all the way around, even on the side that was completely destroyed, the alloy is spot on. There's no buckles, there's no curbing, there's nothing, which is good because they get expensive. Inside the car we have a few optional extras as well. So we have the steering wheel with all the multifunction controls on, which is good. Down here we have cruise control, which isn't in every Cayman. We have the upgraded, the higher rated sound system. We also have a Bose sound system, if you can see on there. It's got these multifunction buttons in the top, and I can't remember what they do, but I think you can program them for like when you come home your garage door opens or something like that. Probably not useful for me, but it's good to know. And along with some of the arch linings, the engine is actually in the middle of this car. Now people say that this is probably one of the most well-balanced Porsches because it's mid-engine. And because it's the Cayman S, it has a 3.4 litre flat 6 engine, which sounds fantastic. And you know what? This one runs. So let's get the key in the ignition and I can show you. Also, this does have two keys, which I made up with. That one probably needs fixing a bit, but it's got both. But as you can imagine, every light is on the dashboard because the car's been through quite a bad crash. But there it is, 115,769 miles. And oh, we have half a tank of fuel. So what we'll do is we'll turn the key. She's down here. And we'll see if she starts. Well, maybe not. I think the battery's too flat, so I'll get it back on charge and we'll go for another start. So battery's back in, fully, well, not fully charged, but charged a lot more than it was. Let's see if she'll start. Key in the ignition. And yes, I know those of you who know will say, oh, what's the engine? You might have bore score. I've done my checks as best I can from outside the car without digging into the engine. But yes, I am aware that there's still quite a big risk of this having bore score because it's 115,000 miles. It's just one of them risks you have to take, innit? Now, I don't have any of the service history or really any of the history for this car. But minus the crash bits, it looks like it's been maintained quite well. So I'm hoping that corresponds to the engine and all the servicing and stuff like that. But if this is your car and you do recognise it, please reach out to me and give me some more info on it, because it would be nice to know the history behind this car and whether or not you had it long, whether you've still got documentation, which I could use if you have. Possibly how the crash happened and how the Cayman ended up in such a state. But given everything that's wrong with this car, I am made up about it, and like I said, yeah, I'll tell you how much I paid for it after you've seen the next bit, because getting this car down here was actually quite a task. And that was because, although I've changed this lower control arm, you can see there's a ratchet strap around it, and the reason it's there is because that subframe has cracked on both sides of that mount. Which means that lower control arm isn't fully fixed to the subframe, so you can only imagine what happened. So let's go to past me, and you can see exactly how hard it was to get this Cayman down to the unit. So the first obstacle that we hit was the recovery truck was too wide to get down the alleyway to the unit. So we had to reverse the truck into the alleyway and take the Cayman off the truck in the alleyway. So everything was going well, and then I noticed the car was pulling back. So much so that I had to stop, and that's when I realised this. Because the tabs have snapped on the subframe, the lower control arm has pulled away and the wheel has come off. And although I'm smiling, I was absolutely gutted. Then we had the bright idea of wedging some plastic slides under the wheel and essentially dragging it out of the alleyway using the power of the car itself. And a huge thank you to Matty from MB Recovery, because it was his idea to use the slides and they worked an absolute dream. I want to give a huge shout out to MB Transport Recovery, because without them the Porsche wouldn't have got down to the unit and we probably still would have been stuck in the alleyway. But if you need anything moving in the northwest or even in the UK, give them a shout, because the service is fantastic and they go above and beyond to help you, as you've just seen, because that wasn't an easy job. I'll leave all the contact details in the description, so head down below and grab them if you need anything moving. So now we finally got the car out the alleyway, we can get it up, get the wheel off and make a temporary fix to get it round to the unit to fix it properly. See down there, that lower control arm I have changed because I physically couldn't move the car. But on the subframe, the tabs for it have snapped. That's what those two are there. And the bolt that goes on the lower control arm has jumped out of that. And that's then caused the wheel to move, meaning the wheel isn't straight based on the same as the other side. So what we'll have to do is try and get that lower control arm off again, or pry it over to get it back on those links, the hooks, so we can get the wheel as straight as we can. Try and ratchet strap it, and then we'll have to get it into the unit as best we can. So in order to try and straighten this back out, the first thing we need to do is to remove the bolt on the lower control arm to pull that off, or at the very least move it back around to straighten out the suspension strut, because that is on an angle it shouldn't be on. The suspension strut now has got a lot of caster to it, and that's because down here you can see there's the bolts for the control arm, but they're supposed to sit in that hanger and they're no good to me at all. So I think I've got a solution to try and help fix the issue, and as always it comes down to ratchet straps. So what the plan is basically the issue we've got on this lower control arm down here is it bolts in but it's not held in, so this will always want to try and come this way, and as you drop the car, opposing forces, it'll jump We're going to try and get a strap around there, sling it under the car and have it going that way, so it hooks on the opposite side, so it's constantly got tension that way to keep it to the subframe, just so we can move the Porsche enough to get it out the way of the middle of the yard, because right now it's not in an ideal location. So the ratchet strap's on, and if this works, I'll be amazed. And I'll also be made up, because then I can actually move the Porsche out the way. But what we've done is, got the ratchet strap down the back there, it goes underneath and hooks, so all the tension is forcing this arm that way to keep it in on the subframe, because those top tabs are non-existent. All we need to do now is get the wheel back on. I haven't put the drop link on, and it's because I've got fears that the sway bar might be bent from when the wheel dropped, but we won't know until we get the subframe off, and then we can check the sway bar once it's off and see how straight it is by comparison to the other side. And it's probably another expense I'm gonna have to pay for. I've just found another half. It's just the subframe trail, so that must have been what snapped when we moved it all before. But we'll get the wheel on. Down below. Suspension's taken away so far, which is good. Get the jack out entirely. Now let's catch that eye over the top. That ratchet strap's down tight. You can see the low control arm is still on the subframe. Hopefully it stays there as we turn the car, but we can't guarantee that until we move it. So let's see what happens. If you want to follow me and see what it is I do with this car and see how far I get with rebuilding it, hit the subscribe button down below, because it's gonna be an interesting one. That didn't work. The ratchet strap snap.
That it?
That's all it was, so that's why it's jumped off. So what we're going to do is we're going to use 2 ratchet straps to see if that helps. Well, at least it's out the way now, and quite clearly it's going to need a new subframe. Well, there she is, the new project car on the channel. Well, after all that carnage, we finally got the Porsche where it belongs, next to the unit, and then when the GTO's got the engine in, we can get the Porsche into the unit and start going into that. And once again, I want to give a huge shout out to MB Transport and Recovery, because without them we wouldn't have got the Porsche here, and it wasn't exactly an easy job, as you've just seen in the video. So if you have a car in the Northwest or anywhere in the UK that you want moving, give them a shout with the details below in the description, and I'm sure they'll be happy to move it. Service is great, and I'll happily use them again. So after all that, it's finally time for me to tell you how much I paid for this car. So at auction, I managed to get the car for £4,000.
Won it? I won £11,500 Porsche for £4,000. There's a bit of a dent like, but
You win it?
to be fair, it's crashed down his car. Mine's the GTO.
Just another one.
And just to show that it was the cheapest in the UK at the time I bought it, I hopped onto Auto Trader and I searched for a Porsche Cayman 987S and then filtered it low to high. And the cheapest one after the one I bought was £8,250, which means I got mine for less than half price. Probably because half of the car was missing. Now, I never thought I'd own another one of these Caymans, never mind in that condition, but you know what, even in the state it's in, I still love the car and I made up we got it at auction. So sometimes things go wrong to go right. I lost out on the first car, which I may still get in the future, but I'm not going to tell you what it is now. But I lost out on that and I gained this, which again was the cheapest Porsche Cayman 987S in the UK. Thank you very much for watching. If you're interested in the build and you want to see how we get on with it and follow along, hit the subscribe button down below and remember to like and turn on the notifications bell so you get an update when I post the next updates on the Cayman, updates on the TT, and updates on the Mitsubishi GTO. And I'll see you in the next one.